Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of textual study of the Quran. If you recall, in our last session, we had started off with Surah Al Imran, which is the third surah of the Quran, and I had introduced this surah to you. But the basic gist that you need to understand while studying this surah is that in this surah, primarily the people of the book have been addressed, and in particular, the Nazarenes or the Christians have been addressed, and a charge sheet of their crimes and their wrongdoings has been handed out to them, and they are told that they are no longer in this position to hold the status of being the witnesses of the truth, which of course the Israelites occupied. And near the middle of the surah, or near the first middle of the surah, you will find out that there is a verse which tells us that now they are deposed, and in their place, a new ummah has been instituted. And because of the fact that they were not able to honor their covenant with the Almighty, now they must stand deposed, and the Almighty has brought in their place the Ishmaelites, which we know were the ones that came to replace them in the times of Prophet Muhammad. So Prophet Muhammad himself was born of the lineage of Ishmael the prophet, and he was the last prophet amongst the Ishmaelites, of course, the last prophets of all lineages, but in particular, if you talk about the Bani Ismail, he was the last of the prophets, and the first, of course, was Ishmael himself, from whom this whole system or this whole series of descendants started. So we had studied until verse 17, and in verse 17 we were talking about the facts that people who will end up in paradise as a result of their endeavors, as a result of their good attitude and their righteous deeds are described. So although we had studied this verse, but I'm just going to repeat some part of it so that we can have the connection. And so the previous verse talks about the fact that there are people who talk about God when they wish God, then they desire to be near to God. They are ones who would be able to see, or at least they are. We know from the Quran it says, "Rizwanu min Allah," they'll have the pleasure of the Almighty, which means that He will be pleased with them. And then it says, "Wallahu basirum bil ibad," which means that they are people whom God is absolutely aware of, which means that He is going to reward them as a result. And then, of course, some of their attributes are mentioned in verse 16. So, starting off with verse 17, these attributes continue, and the words are as-sabirina was-sadiqina wal-qanitina wal-munfiqina wal-mustaghfirina bil-ashar. These who are patient, truthful, obedient, who spend in the way of God, and who implore for forgiveness at the break of day. So you can see the qualities of the believers which are mentioned here are 5, and each of them has a very, very special import. They have very special significance, and if you look at other instances in the Quran, you'll find that these qualities of the believers, these attributes, these traits of the believers, they are mentioned in similar words. The first thing which is mentioned is they are sabirin. So although it has been translated as patient, the element here that needs to be understood here is that patience, of course, is something at times that we exercise when we have nothing else to do. This is not the case with the sabr which the Quran mentions. So sabirin or sabr, or people who adhere to sabr, or people who are patient in the language of the Quran, mean that they are people who stare the challenge in the eye. They are not bogged down. They face every adversity with zeal, with spirit. And so therefore, a better translation perhaps of sabirin would be steadfast. People who are steadfast, people who have that resolve, people who do not in any way wilt whenever they see that things are not going their way. And this is a very, very cherished trait, that you are a person who might be faced with the greatest adversities of life, but then in the wake of these adversities, you don't give up. You continue to fight against those adversities, and you give your best. You put up your best. The second thing which is mentioned is as-sadiqeen. They are the truthful. And of course, this needs no further elaboration, that people who are righteous, they're always truthful. And this truth, of course, is something which is the foundation of all or many other virtues, we can say. A person who is truthful is bound to be a person who is honest. He's bound to be benevolent. He's bound to be sympathetic, because he's so pure in his emotions. He's so pure in his personality that truth permeates it, and truth emanates from it. And whenever something confronts him or her, and if that thing is not even in his own interest or her own interest, that these people are ones who still uphold the truth, even if it goes against their own interest. The next thing which is mentioned is qaniteen. So qaniteen here refers to people who are obedient, who are submissive, which means that they are not rebellious, they are not arrogant, they don't stand up against God. They are ones who submit to Him, who are very, very sincere in His obedience, who would like to follow what He says and therefore earn His pleasure. The next thing which is mentioned is wal munfiqeen, which means that they spend in the way of God. Of course, this is also something that we all know is a very cherished trait. It is something that we all must look up to. It is something that we must all adhere to. Spending in the way of God. I have discussed this a number of times when we were discussing Surah Baqarah, whenever this verse comes up, of infaq fi sabilillah, which means spending in the name of God or spending for the cause of God. It actually means that you spend your best wealth, your pure wealth. It should be hard earned, legal earned wealth. And at the same time, you should start off with your nearest of kin. Wealth, which is earned in this way, should not be a means of show off. It should not be any way, maybe a means of ostentatiousness in which you are bragging about what you did. And at the same time, you must not press other people by reminding them that you did this favor to them. So these are all, I would say, protocols of charity. So to have these protocols, to understand these protocols, of course, is something that is absolutely essential. And one of the most important ones is that when you're spending in charity, always look for people who are not going to come to you, people who have a lot of self-esteem, people who would not let themselves beg you because they have this self-respect. So it is to such people that our spending must go the foremost. Finally, what is mentioned is al-mustaghfirina bil ashar. They implore for forgiveness at the break of day, at dawn. At that time, they are awake. They have prayed their tahajjud prayer. Now is the time for the fajr prayer. So in between that time and as they approach the fajr time, they are not lying there sleeping, but they are very much awake, and they are talking to God. They are imploring for forgiveness. They are ones who would like to accept what God has ordained for them, but at the same time, they would ask for His patience. And also, if any blemish has been done by them, any mistake that has been committed by them, they ask for forgiveness. And this is something that is a trait of all true believers, that they get up early in the morning and they pray to the Almighty to ask for His forgiveness. Then these verses continue, and they say that Shahidallahu annahu la ilaha illahu wal malaikatu wa ulul ilm qa'iman bil qist la ilaha illahu wal azizul hakim. God, His angels, and all the bearers of true knowledge in this world have borne witness that there is no deity but Him. He adheres to justice. There is no deity but Him, the mighty, the very wise. So remember, when we were starting the surah, I had explained this much to you, that since the Nazarenes or the Christians are under discussion, and because of the fact that they had deviated in the matter of Tawheed, which means that although they are monotheistic, and they still are monotheistic, but they are afflicted with this deviant form of monotheism, in which, of course, they believe in Trinity, which is, of course, something which is quite against the monotheistic belief which is presented by the Qur'an. And so once again, we find the theme converging on that as far as monotheism is concerned, which says La ilaha illallah, there is no God but God. This is something which is vouched not only by God Himself, but by the angels and all people of true knowledge. So the Quran actually bestows this title to people of true knowledge, that they are the ones who would never falter in Tawheed, in monotheism. So this also tells us that the true knowledge that a person can have, the true knowledge, which means the comprehension of God that he has, is something that will never waver if that knowledge is kept in a protected way. And precisely this is what we know from other places of the Quran also, that this concept of a single God, this concept of a monotheistic setup, is something that is found in our own intuition. So we don't need to ask anyone if there is no one God or two God. Our own inner self, our own intuition, our nature is such that we immediately recognize that we have been created and there is a God. So that is why the Quran says that all people of knowledge, they vouch for that. And that knowledge, of course, is that inner knowledge, that innate knowledge, that intuitive knowledge that every person has regarding the fact that there is no God but God. And then a very important attribute is mentioned adjacent to it, and that is qa'iman bil qist, which means that he adheres to justice. And this, in fact, is that justice that we have spoken to earlier on as well, that it is his justice which entails that people who rebel in this world in the times of his messengers, and they stand up against their authority, not because there is any confusion, not because that they have no knowledge, but because they are arrogant. They know what the truth is. They are absolutely fully aware what the truth is, but they have taken up to arrogance and they say that we will not accept it. So it is said that Qaiman bil Qist, that God is someone who adheres to justice. So remember, if you continue with your ill ways, then you will face justice. You'll face the music, which in other words means that you will be taken to task. And remember, if there is any confusion, Al Azizul Hakim, he is mighty and he is very wise. So Aziz, mighty, of course, which tells us the fact that there is not a single thing which can cause any hindrance in God creating or recreating this world for the day of judgment. So he is mighty, his will is dominant, he is going to do what he intends to do. Of course, that intention has always been qualified by his wisdom. As you can see, the verse ends on these verses, Al-Aziz wal-Hakim. He is mighty and powerful, but his might, his power, his strength is always qualified by his wisdom. He will do nothing which would be against wisdom, because obviously in our own concept, in this own world, we see when people are powerful, when people become potent, and they become they have a very profound influence, they have this power, the street power, any sort of power, then it can lead them astray and make them rash. So contrary to that, it is always stated that this power in the case of the Almighty is never, it never goes to that extent. It always remains within its bounds, and because it's governed by his wisdom. So this power and wisdom balance is always there. And so no one should worry about it. But yes, people who have gone astray, they have something to think about. But people who have done righteous deeds, they must remember that yes, God is merciful, but his justice is also qualified by his mercy, and his own strength and his power is also qualified by his wisdom. So these are the attributes of God that work in tandem, they work together, and they must not be understood in isolation. And then this very famous verse, Inna ad-deena inda Allahi al-Islam, وَمَا اخْتَلَفَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ إِلَّا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمُ بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُمْ وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ سَرِيعُ الْحِسَابِ. If this is a fact, then there is also no doubt that Islam is the only religion in God's sight, because only Islam calls people to profess faith in God in this manner. And to whom the book was given, they, after the reality of this knowledge came to them from God, have disagreed amongst themselves in it because of mutual squabble. This is open denial. And those who deny God's revelations in this manner should not feel secure from him, because swift is God in reckoning. So a very important and a very, very significant motive of the Quran is that the religion which is acceptable to God has always remained Islam. So this should not be any cause of misconception that what is being talked about is this Islam which was brought by Prophet Muhammad. So remember, all prophets of God, whichever religion they came with, was labeled as Islam. So Islam was the religion with which Adam was sent, and all messengers of God were sent, and it was the same religion with which Muhammad ﷺ was sent, and he parted after it. So as far as the Quran is concerned, as far as this unity of religion is concerned, the Quran has once again pointed it out, that remember, it is the Quran which says that which is what is acceptable to the Almighty is this submission, this Islam, which is the hallmark of all believers. And this is not something which is merely what has been brought by Muhammad, peace be upon him, but all religions of God and all books of God, they heralded the monotheism of the Almighty. And precisely that is why the Quran says that people who differed in this monotheism, people who differed in the fact that there is some other religion also that is acceptable to God, they only did so out of mutual arrogance. So this word baghyan bainahum, this actually means that they had this malice between them. And also, people who were given the book, they only differed once this clear guidance had come to them, which in other words means, dear viewers, that this guidance is something which, I mean, they were not without that guidance. It was not that there was any confusion. It was not that it was not there for them. They had that guidance absolutely pinned down towards them. They knew what it was. but it was that arrogance, it was that haughtiness, it was that rebellious nature which made them fight with one another, and they ended up denying the revelations of God. And that is why this verse ends with this beautiful. I mean, it's not exactly beautiful in this sense, but it's a very grave warning. وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ سَرِيعُ الْحِسَابِ, that those who deny God's verses, who deny God's revelations, they should remember that they are not secure from the Almighty, because the Almighty is swift in taking account. He is going to take his account, and then people will realize that they were at fault. So a very important note that has to be understood here is that people who would be punished in the hereafter would not be punished because of any slackness maybe, or any confusion that they were not very clear about the truth. The Quran says that these people who differed with one another, it was not because the guidance of God had not come to them. No, the guidance did come. So it says that they differed after the guidance came to them. Baghyam bainahum, and the reason being this arrogance and this malice for one another. And if they ended up denying the words of God, they ended up denying the books of God, and for such people, God is going to take their account in a very, very harsh way. And then it says, فَإِنْ حَاجُّوكَ فَقُلْ أَسْلَمْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّهِ وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَانِ وَقُلْ لِلَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ وَالْأُمِّيِّينَ أَسْلَمْتُمْ فَإِنْ أَسْلَمُوا فَقَدِ اهْتَدَوْا وَإِنْ تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ وَاللَّهُ بَصِيرٌ بِالْعِبَادِ. فَإِنْ حَاجُّوكَ, thus if they dispute with you. So remember, the Hajjuka is addressed to Prophet Muhammad. So it's like telling him that if they dispute with you, so if they dispute with you, what should you do? فَقُلْ أَسْلَمْتُ وَجْهِيَ لِلَّهِ وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَانِ, I and those who follow me have submitted ourselves to God. So this is like a disclaimer from the Prophet, and he's being told that if they argue with you, if they dispute with you, then you don't need to entangle yourself. Just state what you believe in, and that is, we submit to God. We have submitted ourselves to God, and then it is further, I mean, there's a further command given to the Prophet, and that is, وَقُلْ لِلَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ وَالْأُمِّيِّينَ أَسْلَمْتُمْ, and ask of the people of the book and these unlettered among the Ishmaelites, do you also similarly submit to God? So remember, the two important denominations which were present in the times of the Prophet were these Ishmaelites, which were also called the Ummiyun, and the word Ummiyun actually means that they were not formally educated like the people of the book. So this was like a distinction between the two. People of the book were the religious pundits, they were the religious guides, and they were formally educated, many of them. But this was not the case with the Ummiyun. The word Ummi actually means someone who is not formally educated. So the Ishmaelites got this title because of the fact that, of course, the Wahi, or the institution of Wahi, had not come to them for a very long time. So in fact, since after the passing away of Prophet Ishmael until the arrival of Prophet Muhammad, they were not aware of any revelation of God. So therefore, they were called as unlettered, as people who had not been formally educated in religion. So in contrast, the people of the book, of course, they were very formally educated, most of them. And these were the two denominations which existed as the addressees of Prophet Muhammad. So these Ummiyun, or these Ishmaelites, as you can say, were the nation of the Prophet. They were the nation of the Prophet. And the people of the book, basically the Jews and the Christians, they inhabited Medina mostly. So mostly the Ishmaelites belonged to the Meccan territory. Yes, they were found in Medina as well, in the suburbs of Medina also at times, but mostly they inhabited Makkah. So the Prophet is being told that you address these Ishmaelites and you address these people of the book. Both of them are your addressees, and tell them, Aslamtum, Aslamtum, which means that do you also submit to God? فَإِنْ أَسْلَمُوا فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا, then if they do, they shall be guided. وَإِنْ تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ, and if they turn away, your responsibility is to communicate only. فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ. So remember, the Almighty has told His Prophet that you have to convey the guidance. So if in aslamu faqad ihtadaw, if they submit to God, they will be guided. But if they turn away, then you don't have to do anything, O Prophet. You have done your duty. You have disseminated the message, and now it is God who's going to be looking after them. And that is why the verse ends with these words, Wallahu basirun bil ibad, which means, and God is duly watching over His servants. Wallahu basirun bil ibad, which means that because He is watching over His servants, because they have faltered, because they have not been up to the mark. So if he's watching over them, then there's this essential consequence of this watching over them, and that is that they will be gravely punished. إن الذين يكفرون بآيات الله ويقتلون النبيين بغير حق ويقتلون الذين يأمرون بالقسط من الناس فبشرهم بعذاب أليم أولئك الذين حبطت أعمالهم في الدنيا والآخرة فما لهم من ناصرين. And as for those who have been denying God's revelations and have been slaying his prophets unjustly, so this is a reference to the Israelites also, because they were also guilty of killing their prophets. From Prophet Yahya, of course, we know what happened to him. We know other prophets of God, they were slain at times, and they were badly treated. So the Quran says that what should be the attitude which should be adopted with these people who are guilty of not just denying messengers, of killing them. يَقْتُلُونَ النَّبِيِّينَ بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ, without any justification. And then not only did they do that, they also did so. They moreover, they went as far as to slay those among his servants who would call them to adhere to justice. So, allazina ya'muruna al-qist, ya'muruna bil-qist min an-nas. So amongst those people who called them to adhere to justice, they also destroyed them. They also killed them. So the Quran says, فَبَشِّرْهُمْ بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ, give them glad tidings of a grievous torment, O Prophet. So these are the people who slayed their prophets, who slayed the righteous amongst them, who called them to justice. They could not tolerate them amongst themselves. They thought that if they're going to come and affect the masses and have an impact on them, then their own findings and their own body politic would not flourish. So therefore, they ended up just destroying them. And the Quran says, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ حَبِطَتْ أَعْمَالُهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. These are the ones whose deeds shall come to nothing in this world. This is a common expression of the Quran. You can see it at a number of instances. It means that whatever good deed they might have done, it will have no return for them. It shall have no appearance in their account, because they did this after violating the sanctity of the life of a person. And not only that, their good deeds will not be of any use in this world and in the hereafter as well. So all their deeds will go waste. وَمَا لَهُم مِّن نَاصِرِينَ, and there shall be none to help them. And absolutely they'll be helpless there. They will face the consequences of their deeds alone in the hereafter. All the majesty and the splendor that they had in this world will disappear, and there they will be absolutely alone before the Almighty, facing the reckoning, and of course the ultimate punishment would then engulf these people. So I'm not going to proceed more. This is the section that we have completed now, and before we start off with the literal and idiomatic translation of these verses, if you have any questions regarding what we have just studied, please raise them.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. Thank you for this wonderful explanation. Shabana Ansari, you may unmute your mic and ask a question.
Thank you, Bisma. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
डॉक्टर साहब, इसमें आपने बताया जैसे कि सारे अंबिया जो है वो इस्लाम लेकर आए थे, लेकिन फिर उसके बाद जैसे यहूद ने अपना नाम रख लिया, नसारा ने अपना नाम रख लिया, और जिस तरह आज हम लोग अपने आप को शिया, सुन्नी, देवबंदी, वहाबी इस तरह कहते हैं, तो जैसे हमारे यहाँ तो लोग पूछते हैं ना, अगर कहो कि मुसलमान हैं तो कहते नहीं, फिरका कौन सा है, सुन्नी है, शिया। तो ये लोग, इनके यहाँ भी इस्लाम का नाम लिया जाता था या इन्होंने बस नसारा और यहूदी कर लिया था?
देखिए, ये तो ऐसे है कि बहुत शुरू में हज़रत इब्राहिम ने कहा था कि मैंने अपनी मिल्लत का नाम इब्राहिम रखा है. सो he basically, it was Abraham himself who gave this name to his followers, and I mean, formally they were called Muslim because of this name being given by Abraham to his followers. But as I said earlier on, that the same name was something which was actually carried over from the previous prophets as well. So in their own you can say mythology, they stuck to this name for a very short while, and later on, of course, we know that these people after Moses especially, they deviated. They ended up worshipping the cow, and they ended up doing a lot of things that the Almighty actually severely stopped them from. So from here we find that their decline is something that is portrayed in history. And it was the final decline, or the final nail in the coffin, was when they tried to crucify Jesus. So basically they stuck to their names earlier on, but later on we can see that what the Quran did call them. For example, there is a clear example that the followers of Jesus have been called as Nazarenes, because we know that Nazareth was the place where Jesus was born, and the Christians, they took pride in calling themselves Nazarenes. In the first few centuries, they never called themselves in this manner, in this fashion. It was much later when the term Christian became coined for this, and it was thought that this is a better, and they replaced it with this word actually. So Nazarenes became Christians. So you can clearly see that in their own times, although they had this label of being Israelites, but you see, this is just a label which brings forth their lineage. As far as the message which was brought by all the prophets of the lineage of Israel and before them, they always said that they have come with Islam. And you can see this in Surah Shura, where it is said that Shara lakum min ad-dini ma wassa bihi Nuhan wallazi awhayna ilayka Ibrahima wa Ismaila. And then there is a whole list of prophets which has been mentioned, that the religion which is being given to you, O prophet, is the same that was given before you to Abraham and to Moses and to Jesus and to so there's a whole list of those prophets that is enumerated, which actually tells us from the Quran tells us that yes, this was the same religion that they followed, but they later on altered the contents also, and they changed its name as well.
Thank you for that. Imran, go ahead, ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shehzad. Thank you very much for the explanation. The verse 21, وَيَقْتَلُونَ النَّبِيِّينَ بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ. So, just two part of my question. The first is, I've always wondered, is there ever a just reason to kill a prophet? I know Quran says بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ. That's number one. Number two is the references from the Bible. If you have any offhand, that would be great. And then one time I was reading that one of the reasons they lost the temple the first time, or rather to the Romans, was because of the killing of Zakaria alayhi salam and the Yahya alayhi salam. So just wanted to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
So, as far as the killing is concerned, that is not true, and the Romans actually ravaged Jerusalem much later. I mean, the first time it happened was around 6th century BC, and this was done by Nebuchadnezzar, who was the Babylonian emperor. So he was the person who destroyed them, and this was something which was because of the fact that they were guilty of polytheism and several other crimes that they committed. And the second time it happened was in 70 AD. This was Titus, and he was the Roman emperor who did so. But again, this was not because they killed Zachariah or specifically one crime. It was a host of crimes that they were guilty of. And this is something which the Quran has mentioned in Surah Bani Israel, that this will happen twice in their history, that twice they shall be subjugated in this way. And if they don't turn back, then God says, in urtum urduna, if you don't return, and if you return, I'll also return. But so basically, this is how it happened. So it was not because of a single killing of the Prophet, but it was because of a series of incidents that you can see in their own history. As far as the first question is concerned, that is there any justification ever for killing a prophet? No, this is not what is meant here actually. So this is a very special style of the Quran. I mean, when it says بغير haq, it doesn't mean that with haq you can kill anyone. This is just to point out the heinous nature of something. So as an example, when I ask someone that you are telling a lie and you are telling a lie in a mosque, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that you can lie when you're outside the mosque. It only means that you are telling a lie, and that too in a mosque. So it's like saying you're killing something, and that too without any justification. So you're killing someone and you have no justification. So it's like pointing out the heinous nature. I mean, you would not, I mean, lying is something which is prohibited at every place. But when you say, well, you're lying in the mosque, it doesn't mean that you can lie outside the mosque. It's only adding gravity to the situation that you are committing something in a holy place. So it's like saying that you're committing a prophet of God, and that too without any justification. So it doesn't actually mean the contrary, that there could ever be a justification.
And then Bible, thank you very much. This, mashallah, very good analogy. Now, the Bible has references to the Israelites killing prophets, because
oh yes, we have the detailed references that this is what happened some years before Jesus himself arrived on the scene, and so I can furnish those inshallah. I'll present them to you maybe in our next session.
Inshallah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Jazakallah.
Thanks for that, Imran. Now, Shaba Wasim, go ahead, ask your question.
Sir, my question is, can you just explain more about what is Iman and what are the attributes of Iman? Normally we say like we in God, but like if we go in a depth, what does that mean?
So the word Iman basically comes from this origin that it is something that we should, we should acknowledge, because it is the requisite of our sense, of our intuition, and of course all logic that we come across. So something that you believe in a metaphysical reality, something that you cannot see, but you believe in that thing simply because there are arguments in favor of that metaphysical reality, then this is what is called Iman. So, this is something which you can say that you believe in some metaphysical reality, something that you have not seen, something whose philosophically might be proven, but you cannot see it by your eyes, but you believe in that philosophical reality or that metaphysical reality because there are strong arguments in its favor. So this is what Iman is. And then as you can see that it expands in various branches, where you have faith, Iman in God, you have Iman in the prophets, you have Iman in the hereafter. So these are all beliefs, these are all our acknowledgements, because our inner self acknowledges these facts, these metaphysical realities, on the basis of certain arguments which are given to us.
That's how you develop that Iman quality inside. Like is there any prerequisite or something which increase our Iman, and how we increase that kind of?
So this is mentioned in many places, in instances in the Quran, that as far as Iman is concerned, it is a trait that you have in God, and it, of course, it just does at times dazzle, at times it dazzles like fire, and at times it has a very low flame, and it continues to grow, and at times we are at a very high regarding our Iman, and at times we are at a very low. And actually, this all depends on how you perceive your Creator. The stronger your connection with God, the stronger your Iman comes. And this strong connection with God actually starts off by acknowledging His favors, by acknowledging His blessings, by counting His blessings, by seeing that how He has, continuously cared for us ever since we were born, and ever since we came into this world, and right up to this moment when He created this whole world for our own service, our own family. He gave us a normal body, the best of education, maybe. There are so many things that we can keep counting. So basically, it starts off with this acknowledgement. And when you acknowledge God, this is something which brings you closer to Him. So this act of becoming closer to God, which is of course something which I've just described in words, in effect says that your Iman is increasing. Now you have a strong God connection. Now you are not wavered by lurings. Yes, there are things that might check you, they might allure you, they might cause you to be in distress maybe, but ultimately you are able to overcome. So in other words, this battle between right and wrong, the stronger your faith, the stronger your Iman, the stronger is the chance that you will overcome that hurdle. But the need, or the way that you can increase this Iman, is to have that strong God connection, starting off, of course, with the acknowledgement of His favors, and then by reading His book as much as you can with understanding and with a good translation, and also connecting Him through the prayer, which is of course something which puts your heart at rest. It is something that connects you to God. And so these are some of the things. And of course, not withholding the fact that sharing your favors with the underprivileged, always looking after the people, this human element in which you look after other creatures whom God has created, not just human beings, but animals as well, and vegetation, and all sorts of things that He has created. You respect their creation. So this is like, it's like a package, and I can speak more about it, but because of the want of time, and because it's not directly actually our topic here, I'll content myself with a small explanation.
Thank you, sir.
Bhatti Saab, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Thank you, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Right.
Not a very small question. You probably have told us before, but Allah maaf kare mujhe, I forget it. The Fabashirum bil azab alim. It comes severally, and I'm pretty sure you have told us before. I forgot. So, can you explain that? Couldn't be better translated? But we're talking about azab, and then so bisharat.
No, so this is what is called sarcasm. This is like sarcasm. This is what you call tans in our own language. So the Quran, remember, is a literary masterpiece. It has its own language. It has its own style. It has its own diction. So, of course, when you say that, give them glad tidings of I mean, you would await that the next word should be of some reward. But as you can see, it has been totally reversed, that give them glad tidings of punishment. So when you see that there is something adverse that does not collocate, so it is here that you understand clearly that the language that the Quran is employing here, or the tool that it's employing here, the tool of language, is what we call sarcasm. So the Quran is being sarcastic here. So this is basically a sarcasm on the part of God.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Abdul Rahman, please ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam.
Sir, my question is regarding the definition of arrogance. So I have just written my question. I will just read out. It's 2-3 lines. So my question is, what is arrogance according to the Quran? Is asking this. I mean, I'm asking this because the definition of kibr is ghamtun nas and batrul haq, right? So most of the Muslims will not go against God. It's the second part that is ghamtun nas.
So can I interrupt here, because I mean this time is reserved for questions that relate to the passage that we have studied. So unless you have a question which relates to this passage, if you have a general question, inshallah, you'll get time near the end of this when we finish this off.
Sure, not a problem, sir.
Thank you. Shahzad Khan, if you have a question that's relating to the text, please go ahead.
My question is actually just a clarification I need about a question somebody earlier asked. It was to killing the prophets without haqq. From what I understood when I read it is that a prophet is a human. If they commit a mistake, it will be haqq to kill them, but they have never committed a sin, and even then they were killed. Or is it that they're exempt from killing at all?
No.
You said
I mean,
a prophet killing a prophet is a sin. If they're human,
that is another that we can discuss. I mean, that is a separate thing. But if you concentrate on the verse, is that what it is actually saying is that these Israelites, these people, were guilty of killing their own prophets. So the Israelites were guilty of killing their own prophets without any justification. And this addition of without any justification is just a mention of the horrific nature of this killing. As I said, I mean, I gave an example earlier on. So basically what it is saying is that they had absolutely no basis to kill their prophets. It doesn't mean that you can kill a prophet when you have a basis. I've explained this just a while ago.
No, but if a prophet committed a sin, let's say, if they did, wouldn't they still be considered human? And wouldn't
yes, they would be. So as far as the sin of the prophets is concerned, we know from the Quran that the nature of this sin is never of the nature of, succumbing to their evil desires. It's always of the nature of overstretching, overdoing something that was not even required from them. And we see very pleasant remarks of rebuke for the Prophet himself, Prophet Muhammad himself, in the Quran, in which the Almighty has very affectionately rebuked him that you are not required to go overboard. So basically, the wrongs which the prophets of God commit when they are in their ministry is that they go overboard. They are even more zealous than God wants them to be, because God says that enough is enough. These people don't deserve this. So this is the nature of their wrongdoing. It's never of the nature that we come across in which we succumb to our desires. So it's not succumbing to their own desires. It's like crossing the limits in being a good person, going way ahead.
I know that the prophets are the chosen ones, and Allah Ta'ala obviously knows when He chooses a prophet that He's the chosen one. He is not going to do something against the will of Allah. So that's why He chose them to be a prophet. But I'm just saying, بغير حق, when I read it, I understood that they killed the prophets without a justifiable reason. And the justifiable reason to kill any human being, including a prophet, would be if they committed a grave sin, for example, killed someone without a reason. This is the only justification for killing a human being in the book.
As I said, this is not used in this sense here. I mean, killing a human being with justification, that's another important thing. I mean, that is mentioned elsewhere in the Quran. Here, the word بِغَيْرِ حَقٍ is not pointing out to the fact that you can kill a prophet with justification. I mean, it's actually pointing out to the horrific nature. I gave this example that if I tell you that you are telling a lie, and that too in a mosque, it doesn't mean that I can tell a lie outside of the mosque. It just tells us that you are doing this, and that too in a holy place. So it's like saying that you are killing someone, and not just an ordinary person, you are killing a prophet of God. So that
So
is
what
what
you're
بغير حق actually here
yeah,
means.
the بغير حق here is used as a literary
As a
tool
literary
that
device.
emphasizes
Yes, as a literary device.
yeah, okay. So it's not like in the literal meaning
It's
of
not,
بغير,
yeah, no, certainly
only
not.
the
Certainly not.
okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
it's not used in that sense.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Dr. Salim, I have a question. So the Ismailites were settled in Arabia by Prophet Abraham. So with the reference here towards the Jews and the Ishmaelites, so the Jews of that time accepted that Ishmael's progeny had left Judaism and were practicing something else. This was an accepted fact at
No,
that time.
no. You see, there are two different denominations. Arabs were always there. So it was the Jews who had come from Palestine. They had, in after the passing away of Jesus, and of course the Christians also. So once Jesus passed away, it was they who settled later on, and they came out of the land of Palestine. And in various periods of time, before the arrival of Prophet Muhammad, they actually entered the Arabian Peninsula. So these are the two denominations who lived when the Prophet arrived on the scene. So the Arabs, they were always there in Arabia, and the Jews and Christians had come from all the way from Palestine, and they had settlements mostly around Medina. So these are two independent, and the Ishmaelites are also called Ummiyun by the Quran. Ummiyun is just a title given to them because they were not conversant of any Sharia before Prophet Muhammad. It was right at the time of Ishmael when they were sort of given some guidance. So there was no
So
other
these
prophet between Ishmael and Muhammad.
Okay, so the Jews and the Christians that were settled there, were they the progeny of Isaac or
Of
Ismail?
course, yes, they were the progeny of Isaac. They were the Bani Israel.
Okay, okay, thank you. There are no more questions at the time, Dr. Salim. We can continue with the
Okay, so
session.
I'm now going to start off with the literal and idiomatic translation, starting off with the first verse. Alif Lam Mim. So I've already discussed this, that this is basically the title or the name of the surah, and normally in such cases the enunciative, which is the mubtada, or exactly the inchoative is mehzuf or is suppressed, which means that Hazihi Alif Lam Mim. This is Alif Lam Mim, or Hazihi Surah Alif Lam Mim. This is the surah which is called Alif Lam Mim. Allahu la ilaha illahu al-hayyul qayyum. Allah, God, la, not ilah, God, except huwa, he, al-hayyu, living, al-qayyum, who brings everyone into existence. So idiomatically it would mean there is no God except him. There is no God except him. And who is he? He is al-hayy and he is al-qayyum. He is the living, and he is someone who keeps other living as well. Nazzala alayka al-kitaba bil-haq. Nazzala, he revealed. Who revealed? God. Of course, God has already been mentioned in verse 2. So Nazzala, he revealed. Alayka, on you. Al-kitab, the book. Bil-haq, with the truth. So he revealed to you, O Prophet, the book with the truth, referring to the Quran. Musaddiqan lima bayna yadayhi. Musaddiqan lima bayna yadayhi is a single expression which means in confirmation of what is in front of him. In confirmation of what is in front of it. So basically the Quran has been revealed in confirmation of what was already before them, and this is referring to the Torah, signifying the fact that the predictions and the prophecies which were mentioned regarding the arrival of the Quran, it has come in confirmation of those predictions. So idiomatically you will translate it as God has revealed to you the book with the truth, which is in confirmation to what is before them, before it actually. وَأَنزَلَ التَّوْرَاةَ وَالْإِنْجِيلَ. Wa, and Anzala, he revealed. At-Tawrah, the Torah. Wa, and Al-Injil, the Gospels. So it is he who revealed the Quran, and it is he who has revealed the Torah and the Injil. Min qablu hudal linnas. So min qabl is related to the previous verse, which says prior to that. So prior to the Quran, he revealed the Torah and the Injil. And hudal linnas, the purpose was to guide people. Huda is guidance, le is for, annas is people. So in order to guide people, this is what made him reveal the Quran, the Torah, and the Injil. And then it says, وَأَنزَلَ الْفُرْقَانِ, and it is he who revealed the Furqan. Now this is also the name of the Quran, and Furqan actually means something which distinguishes the right from the wrong. So this is one of the names of the Quran. So وَأَنزَلَ الْفُرْقَانِ. So once again, the previous motive has been repeated, that he is the one who revealed the Furqan, which is the Quran itself. And then it says, Inna allazina kafaru bi ayatillahi lahum azabun shadid. Inna is indeed, allazina, they who kafaru, denied, Kafaru be is a single actually word. So be is basically a proposition that comes with kafara. So kafaru be is one word. Ayat is the plural of ayah. And it would mean, indeed, those who have denied the signs or the revelations of God. Ayatillah, the revelations of God. Lahum azabun shadid. La, for whom, them. Azabun shadid. Azab is punishment. Shadid is intense. So for them, there is an intense punishment. Wallahu azizun zuntiqam. Wa, and Allah, God. Aziz is mighty. Zuntiqam is one who can take revenge. So God is one who is mighty and who can take revenge. Of course, this is in context with the fact that these are the people who have denied God's revelations and now they face his wrath. Inna Allah la yakhfa alayhi shay'un fil ardi wala fis sama. Inna Allah la yakhfa alayhi shay'un fil ardi wala fis sama. It means, indeed, God, la yakhfa. La is not, yakhfa means hidden. Alayhi, on him, shay'un, anything. Fi, in, al-ard, the earth, wa, and la, not, fi, in, as-sama, the heavens. So it means that there is nothing hidden from him in the heavens and in the earth. Neither in the heaven, neither in the earth nor in the heavens. Fil ard wala fis sama. Fi is in and neither in the earth. Wala, no, wa is not, la, not, fi, wa is and, la is not, fi is in, as-sama. And neither in the sama or neither in the heavens. So there's nothing which is hidden from him in the heavens and the earth. And then it said, Huwa allazi yusawwirukum fil arham. Huwa, he, allazi, who, yusawwirukum, he shapes your appearance. He makes your appearance, or he makes your faces. Fi, in, al-arham. Arham is the plural of rahim, and rahim actually refers to the womb. So it is he who makes your pictures, he makes your appearance in the wombs. Kaifa yasha. Kaifa is howsoever, and yasha, he wants. So whatever he wants, in whatever form he wants, he makes your appearances, he makes your faces in the wombs. La, not, ilaha, God, illa, except, who, he. So there is no God except he. Al-Aziz, Al-Hakim. Al-Aziz is mighty, Al-Hakim is powerful. So once again, idiomatically, we can say it is he who makes your faces in the wombs of the mothers in whatever form he pleases, in whatever form he wants to, and there is no God but him, and he is Al-Aziz Al-Hakim, which means that he is mighty and he is wise. هو الذي أنزل عليك الكتاب منه آيات محكمات. Huwa, he, allazi, who, anzala, revealed, alayka, on you, al-kitab, the book, referring to the Quran. So it is he who has revealed on you the book. Minhu ayatum muhkamat. Minhu, from among this book, there are ayat, there are verses, muhkamat, which are muhkam. Muhkamat is the plural of muhkam. So amongst this book are verses which are muhkam. Hunna ummul kitab. They, hunna is they. Ummul kitab, they are the foundation of the book. So ummul kitab means the foundation of the book. Wa, and ukhar is the plural of ukhra, means others. So there are verses which are muhkamat, and there are others which are mutashabihat. So mutashabihat, I've already explained that it refers to verses in which the matters of the hereafter are stated in the Quran by means of comparison. So it just says that the Quran has two types of verses, one which is the main part of the Quran, and the others in which the matters of the hereafter are stated in the form of tashbih or comparison. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ زَيْغٌ. fa, therefore, amma, he, allazina, who, fi qulubihim. So fi is in, qulub is the plural of qalb, heart. So as for those in whose hearts is zayr. Zayr is what? Is something which is a twist, something which is perverted. So as for those in whose hearts there is perversion, فَيَتَّبِعُونَ. So therefore, yattabi'una, they follow. Fa is therefore, yattabi'una, they follow. So therefore they follow ma tashabaha, what is what has been regarded in the form of tashbih from the book. Ibtigha al-fitna. Ibtigha, they want to create fitna. So they want to create dissension. So people in whose hearts there is zayg, people in whose hearts there is perversion, fayattabi'una ma tashabaha. So what they do, that they go after the mutashabihat. Ma tashabaha, what is amongst the mutashabihat? Minhu, from the Quran. Ibtigha al-fitna. And the reason for that is they would like to find fitna. Ibtigha is to find or to create. Al-fitna is dissension. Wa and ibtigha, again the same word, to create. Wabtigha, or to find out, ta'wilihi, to find out their reality. So these are the people who would go after the fitna, to create fitna, and they are the ones who would like to know the reality. So ta'wil here, it means the reality. Ta'wilihi, of course, referring to those verses in which things are mentioned in this way. Wa and ma, not. Ya'lamu, knows. Ta'wilahu, its interpretation. Illallah, except God. So whereas its reality or its real ta'wil is only known to God. So what is mentioned here is that as far as people in whose hearts there is a twist or a perversion, they go after these mutashabihat verses, trying to create fitna and trying to seek the ta'wil, trying to seek the reality. You cannot seek the reality because you just cannot understand the meaning. I mean, you know the meaning of the mutashabihat verses, but their reality is unknown to you. And God says, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ تَأْوِيلَهُ إِلَّا اللَّهُ, not knows the ta'wil except God. That is the literal translation. So idiomatically it would mean that except God, none knows its reality, the reality of these verses. وَالرَّاسِخُونَ فِي الْعِلْمِ. So rasikhun means firmly grounded. Fi, in, al-ilm, knowledge. So those who are firmly grounded in knowledge, yaqulun, they say, amanna bihi, we believe bihi, in them. Amanna bihi, we believe in them. Kullum min indi rabbina. Kullun, everything. Min is from. Indi, from again. Rabbina, our Lord. So everything is from the presence. Literally the word inda means presence. So here it actually just refers to the fact it is from God. So kullum min indi rabbina would mean that all of them, all of these, whether they are the muhkam verses or the mutashabihat verses, all of them are from God. وَمَا يَذَّكَّرُ إِلَّا أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. Wa and ma, not. يَذَّكَّرُ, to receive a reminder. Illa, except. Ulul albab, men of understanding. So literally it would mean that and not are reminded except those of understanding. So this is how literally you would translate. But idiomatically, of course, would be it would mean that only people who are men of understanding will be reminded by this. وَمَا يَذَّكَّرُ إِلَّا أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا وَهَبْ لَنَا مِن لَّدُنكَ رَحْمَةً إِنَّكَ أَنتَ الْوَهَّابُ. Rabbana, O Lord, our Lord, la tuzigh, la, not. Tuzigh, do not make our hearts twist. Kulubuna, of course, is the plural of kalb, and na is for us. I mean, the pronoun. So kulubuna would mean our hearts. Rabbana la tuzigh kulubuna would mean, O Lord, ours, do not twist our hearts. Do not lead them. Do not let them go astray. So this is idiomatically what is implied. Otherwise, literally it means don't let our hearts be twisted. La tuzigh kulubana. Ba'da, after, is when hadaitana, you have guided us. And do not twist our hearts, do not lead our hearts astray after you have guided us. Wa and hab lana, give us. Hab, give us. Lana, to us. Min, from among. Min ladunka, from among yourself, from you. Rahma, mercy. So, and give us, and give to us your mercy. Wa hab lana min ladunka rahma. Innaka, innaka, inna is indeed, ka is of course a pronoun for you. Innaka would mean indeed you. Anta, anta is also you, so it's like a emphasis. Innaka antal wahhab. Wahhab means someone who gives, someone who is always giving. So indeed it is you who are the giver. That would be the idiomatic translation. Otherwise, literally it says, indeed you giver. That is how literally you can translate it. But of course, idiomatically it would just give that stress that none except you can give. Only you are the one who bestows. Innaka antal wahhab. Rabbana innaka jami'un nasi liyawmin la rayba fi. Rabbana, our Lord, innaka, indeed you. So the same word that has been mentioned in the previous verse also. Jami'u means one who gathers, one who collects and gathers and assembles. An-nas, people. Liyawmin, for a day. La, not. Raib, doubt. Fihi, in it. So literally it would say, Lord, indeed you, gatherer of people, for a day, la rayba fi, in which there is no doubt. This is how literally you would translate it. But idiomatically it would mean, Lord, you are the one who is going to gather people for the day of judgment, for that day in which there is no doubt. The word rayb means doubt. Fihi, in it. It says there's no doubt in it. There's no doubt in its advent. Inna allaha la yukhliful mi'ad. Inna, Indeed, Allah is God. La is not. Yukhlifu would mean to go back. Al-mi'ad, promises. So indeed, God does not breach His promises. Mi'ad, His promises. La yukhlifu mean He does not breach them. إن الذين كفروا لن تغني عنهم أموالهم ولا أولادهم من الله شيئا وأولئك هم وقود النار. Inna is indeed. Allazina who kafaru disbelieved. Indeed, those who disbelieved, lan certainly not. Tughniya will be sufficient. And tughniya anhum would mean sufficient for them. Amwalahum, amwal is the plural of mal, and mal means wealth. So hum is they, their wealth. So indeed, those who have disbelieved, certainly their wealth will be not of any use to them. Wala awladuhum wa, and la is not. Awlad is is again it means children. So neither their wealth nor their children will be of any use to them. Lan tughniya anhum, they will have no use for them. Minallahi shay'a. Minallah means in relation to God, against God. Shay'a, even the slightest, even the smallest bit. So in other words, what is implied here is that the wealth and children of these disbelievers would not be slightly of any avail to them before God. They will have no value. They will have no standing before God. And what would be actually they? وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ وَقُودُ النَّارِ. So wa and ulaika, they, hum again is there. It's like a double emphasis. Waqud means the fuel, something that burns the fire. So waqudun nar would mean the fire, the fuel of that fire, something which makes that fire burn. So that is how the Quran says. Kada bi ale fir'aun. Ka is like, da is the way. Ale fir'aun, the followers of Pharaoh. So the verse says, like the way of the followers of Pharaoh. That is what is meant. So this is, in other words, it means that just as it has been said that people who have disbelieved, their wealth and their children will be of no use to them. This is what the previous verse has said. So building up on that, it is said, just as in the case of the Pharaoh also. So ka is like, dab is the way, ale Pharaoh is the followers of the Pharaoh, wallazina min qablihim, wa and allazina who min qablihim, before them. So the same will be the case of the Pharaoh and his followers, and wallazina min qablihim, and those before them, qablihim, before them. And what did they do? Kazzabu bi ayatina. Kazzabu, they denied. Bi ayatina. So kazzaba be is one word. Be is the preposition for the verb kazzaba. So kazzaba be is one word, which means they denied. Ayatina, our revelations. Ayatina means a plural for ayah. So they are the ones who denied our revelations. فَأَخَذَهُمُ اللَّهُ بِذُنُوبِهِمْ. Therefore, akhaza means he took them, or he actually grabbed them. Hum is them. Akhaza is he. And who is he? It's mentioned right after that as Allah. Akhazahumullah means God nabbed them, or God grabbed them. Bizunubihim. Be is because. Zunub is the plural of zamb, and zamb means sin, and him is they. So God nabbed them. Akhazahumullah, God seized them, God nabbed them, God took hold of them. Bizunubihim, because of their zunub, because of their sins. So zunub is the plural of zam, it means sin, and him is they, because of their sins. Wa and Allah, God, shadid, very, very powerful, or stern, iqab, in taking revenge or in taking retribution. So God is very, very powerful in taking revenge. Wallahu shadidul iqab. قُلْ لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَتُغْلَبُونَ وَتُحْشَرُونَ إِلَى جَهَنَّمَ وَبِئْسَ الْمِهَادُ. Qul, of course, this word is repeated a number of times in the Quran. It is generally addressed to the Prophet Muhammad, and it tells him to convey a certain message. So here it says, Qul, O Prophet, tell these disbelievers. And what to tell them? That is mentioned right ahead. So first let's break down this verse. Qul, tell, lillazina, to these. Who are these? Kafaru, who are the believers? Satughlabuna. Sa is something which mentions, when it occurs at the beginning of a verb, it means soon. So actually the verb is tughlabun. You shall be dominated. But when you add a sa or a sin to that verb, it means soon. It's like sofa, or sa is actually, it refers to the fact that this act is going to occur very soon. So, qulil lazina kafaru satughlabuna would mean, tell these disbelievers, satughlabuna, you shall be soon conquered. You shall be soon dominated upon. Wa and Tuhsharun. Tuhsharun would be thrust. Ila, towards Jahannam, hell. You shall be pushed or you shall be shoved and thrusted towards hell. Wa, and Bi'sa is evil. Mihad is the resting place. So this is an evil resting place. So idiomatically we can translate it as, O Prophet, tell these people who have disbelieved that you shall soon be conquered and you shall be driven towards the fire of hell. And that hell is a very, very evil resting place. Now, قَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ آيَةٌ فِي فِئَتَيْنِ الْتَقَطَ. قَدْ, indeed, قَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ. So this has basically been joined together. Otherwise, you can write it separately. كَانَ لَكُمْ. So قَدْ كَانَ لَكُم would be, indeed, there is for you. Ayatun is sign, a symbol. Fi, in. Fi'atain. Fi'atain is the dual of fi'a. So fi'a means a group. And fi'atain would mean two groups. Iltaqata. Iltaqata means when they met face to face, referring to the Battle of Badr, in which, of course, the idolaters and the believers were pitted against one another. Kat kana lakum ayatun fi fi'atayn iltaqata would mean, and there is a sign for you in these two groups, fil fi'atayn iltaqata, when they met. Of course, it means when they met in the battle. Fi'atun tuqatilu fi sabilillah. Fi'atun, there is one group, tuqatilu, who fought, fi, in, sabil, way, Allah, God. So one group fought in the way of God. Fi'atun, so there were two groups who are mentioned. So one of them fought in the way of God. Fi'atun tuqatilu fi sabila. Wa ukhra kafira yarawnahum mislayhim. And the other one, ukhra is the other one. Kafiratun were the disbelievers. Yarawnahum, they saw them. Yara means to see. Yaraw means they saw. Hum, them. Mislayhim, twice their own number. Ra'yal ain, the way it is, the things are seen. Ra'yal ain would mean the way they are seen. So basically what is being said here is that the disbelievers, they saw them to be twice their own number. In other words, we know in the Battle of Badr, the believers were 1,000 and the disbelievers were 1,000, the believers were 313. So what the Quran is telling them, that the disbelievers actually saw these believers to be twice their own number, which is 2,000. So this, because the disbelievers are 1,000, the Quran says that such was the awe of the fight of the believers, because angels were also fighting on their side, that it looked as if they were twice their own number, twice the own number of the disbelievers. Mislayhim, twice. Ra'yal ain, the way they would see. Wallahu, wa, and Allah, God, yu'ayyidu means supports. Be nasrihi, through his help. Nasr is help, be is through, he is him. Man yasha, whoever he likes. Yasha, whoever he likes. So, wallahu yu'ayyidu bi nasrihi man yasha would mean that he supports through his help whoever he wants to. Inna fi zalika la ibratan li ulil absar. Inna is indeed, fi is in, zalika means this, la ibra. Ibra means a lesson. And you will always often see that there is this the word lam, or the la particle, always comes in the sentence near the end whenever it begins with inna. So this is technically called that it is the khabar of inna. It always the khabar always is appended by this lam. So inna fi zalika la ibra would mean that indeed in this is a lesson. In this is a lesson. Li ulil albab, for ulil albab. Ulil absar means people who have insight. Absar is the plural of basar, and basar, of course, is sight. But in fact, what is implied here is people who have insight, people who have vision. So, wallahu yu'ayyidu bi nasrihi man yasha. God helps, God supports through his helps whoever he wants to. And indeed, in this there is a lesson. There is a lesson li ulil absar, for those who have insight. زين للناس حب الشهوات من النساء والبنين والقناطير المقنطرة من الذهب والفضة والخيل المسومة والأنعام والحرث ذلك متاع الحياة الدنيا والله عنده حسن المآب. So zuyina means to make something attractive. Zuyina, that to make attractive. Le, for annas, people, and so has been made attractive. That would be the literal translation. And what has been made attractive? That is coming right next, and that is hubbu shahwat, the love for desires. The love for desires from among minan nisa, from among women. And then wal baneen. Baneen is the plural of banun, banu, which means children. Wa, and al qanatir. Qintar is the is the singular of qanatir, and it means treasure. Muqantara, in a large amount. Min az-zahabi, from gold, which means made from gold. Wal fizza, wa, and al fizza means silver. So up to here, if I translate it, it would be that the love for the hubbu shahawat would mean that the love for the lures of amongst women and children and gathered treasure has been made attractive to men. In other words, I mean, these are the things which have been made attractive to people. That the love of wealth, which or the love of desires, which includes women and sons and treasures of gold and silver. Qanatir al-munqantarati min az-zahab wal fidda. So zahab is gold and fizza is silver. Wa, and al-khayl. Khayl means horses. Al-musawwama means marked. And this was a very special form of tradition that was carried out in ancient Arabia, in which horses, which were special, had a very special pedigree, they were marked with these certain collars. Wal khayl musawwama. Wal an'am. So al-am is cattle or livestock. And al-hars is, of course, plantation. So if you can clearly see that this is how the Arab surroundings have been portrayed, that these are the things that have been made, attractive to people. And people, of course, here mean refer to the Arabs, because for them, these were the things that held a lot of significance, and they were really attracted to women, to children, to lots of treasures made from silver and gold, and to marked horses, and to livestock, and to plantation. So these are all things that were really cherished by them, and that is what the Quran has counted here. Zalika, this. Mata means provision. Al-hayat dunya, the life of this world. Hayat is life, dunya is this world. So zalika mata'ul hayat dunya would mean that this is the provision of this world, and this is what this world can give you. Wallahu indahu husnul ma'ab, whereas wa, and Allah, God, indahu, with him, inda, with who, him, and indeed with God is husnul ma'ab. Hus means best or better. Ma'ab means the consequence or the ultimate fate. So in other words, what is being said here is that with God is the best fate. So the comparison is that yes, you might be lured by these things, they become a test and trial for you, but do remember that this is a very paltry provision that you are given of this world. You can choose it to use it in the right way and earn the forgiveness of God and His pleasure. And if you do so, then remember, Wallahu indahu husnul ma'ab, that with Him is the best fate. With Him is the best place abode, or the best abode. So ma'ab means a place where you will ultimately reach. So Wallahu indahu husnul ma'ab, referring to the fact that with Him is the best possible places that you can reach. Of course, this refers to the paradise. Huh? Qul a'unabbi'ukum min khayrin min zalikum. Qul is once again the command given to Prophet Muhammad, telling him that you announce this to them. A'unabbi'ukum, should I tell you? A'unabbi'ukum would mean should I tell, and kum is you. Nabba is the word. Anabba would mean should I tell you? Kum, you. And should I tell is basically anabba, kum, you. Bi khayrin min zalikum, something which is better than what you say, better than these things. Bi khayrin min zalikum. And what is that? Lillazina ittaqaw inda rabbihim. Lilla, le is for allazina, those ittaqaw. Ittaqaw means who fear or who have taqwa. For those who have that fear, inda rabbihim, that in the presence of their Lord, or in the presence, Rabbi, Lord, him there. And so it says, what is that? Jannatun tajri min tahtiha al-anhar. Jannat is the plural of Jannah, and of course in Arabic it means orchard or a garden. Tajri, flows. Min tahti is one word. Min tahti means beneath. Ha, that orchard, or those orchards. Al-anhar, rivers or streams. Khalidina fiha. Khalidina fiha would mean that they will remain in it forever. So the verse makes this point that God says that yes, these are the provisions of this world, and they might be luring to you, but if you use them in the correct way, you will have a very beautiful ultimate resting place, which is paradise. And if you would like to ask me that are there anything better than these lures that I have just mentioned, then yes, they are. Should I not inform you something which is even better than this? Especially for those who have taqwa in the Rabbihim, before their Lord. So now that announcement is being made. And what are those things? Jannatun tajri, that orchards below which are streams. Tajri min tahtiha, tajri min, which means it flows beneath. Tahtiha, beneath. Tahta is beneath. Tajri min, to flow. Jannat is orchards. Ha is them. So flows beneath these orchards, al-anhar. Anhar is the plural of nahar, and nahar means a river or a stream. So Jannah tajri min tahtiha al-anhar, orchards below which streams will flow. Khalidina fiha, they will, Khalidin means forever. Fiha means in it. They will dwell in it forever. Khalidina fiha. Wa azwaju mutahharatum wa rizwanum min Allah. Wa azwaj, wa, and azwaj is the plural of zawj and it means spouse. Mutahhara means pure, and they would be pure spouses for them. Wa, and rizwan. Rizwan means pleasure, or God's pleasure, which means, of course, that He would be pleased. But rizwanum min Allah would mean the pleasure of God. So that is what the Quran is telling them, that should I not tell you something which is better than these provisions? So that is that you will have these orchards below which rivers will flow, and you will have pure spouses for you, and you will have the pleasure of God. This is much better than these lurings. Wallahu basirum bil ibad. Wa, and Allah is God. Basir means watching, and ibad it refers. It is the plural of abd actually, and it refers to servants, referring to His creatures. So wallahu basirum bil ibad would mean, and God is watching over His creatures or His servants. And who are those? Allazina yaquluna rabbana innana amanna. And they are the ones, allazina, they are the ones, yaquluna, who say, Rabbana, our Lord, innana, indeed we, amanna, we professed faith. Indeed we professed faith. Faghfir lana, fa is therefore, ighfir, forgive, lana, us. Faghfir lana would mean, so therefore forgive us. Zunubana, our sins. Zunub is the plural of zamb, and zamb means the sin, and na is our. So our sins, forgive us our sins. Wa, and qina. So qi is basically protect us, and na, k is protect, and na is us. So wa qina would mean protect us. Azab an nar, from the torment of the fire. Azab is torment, and nar is fire. So God, forgive us our sins and protect us from the fire of hell. This is the idiomatic translation. And then again, these attributes are continued with as-sabirin. As-sabirin means people who are steadfast. As-sadiqeen, who are truthful. Al-qanitin, who are obedient. Al-munfiqeen, who spend in charity. Wal-mustaghfirin, who seeks forgiveness. Bil-ashar, at daybreak, at the break of day, you can say. So these are the qualities that are mentioned. And then it goes on, Shahidallahu annahu la ilaha illahu wal malaikatu ulul ilmi qa'iman bil qist. Shahida bears witness. Allah, God. So God bears witness. Annahu, that He. La, not. Ilaha, God. Illa, except who? He. So God bears witness that there is no God except Him. So this is the verdict of God Himself. Wal malaika, and of the angels. Wa ulul ilm, and of people of understanding. So the fact that God, His angels, and all the people who testified, who have true knowledge, they have borne witness. And what do they have? What have they borne witness to? Annahu la ilaha illahu, that there is no God except He. La ilaha illahu. All of these beings have borne witness that there is no God except He. Qaimam bil qist. Qaimam, I mean, he who adheres to. Bil qist. Qist is justice. One who adheres to justice. And then this phrase is repeated. La ilaha illahu. There is no God but He. Al-Aziz al-Hakim. He is mighty. Al-Aziz is mighty. And Al-Hakim is wise. He is mighty. He is wise. Inna deena indallahi al-Islam. Inna is indeed. Ad-Deen, the religion. Indallah, before God. Al-Islam, Islam. So indeed, the religion which is acceptable to God, that would be the idiomatic translation. Otherwise, the literal translation would be religion before God is Islam. So idiomatically, it would mean indeed the religion which is acceptable to God is Islam. Wa, and ma is not. Ikhtalafa, to differ. Allazina, those who, utul kitab, given the book. Illa, except. Mim ba'de, after. Ma ja, that came. Hum, to them. Al ilm, true knowledge. Baghyam is like is malice. Bainahum, amongst themselves. Baina is among, and hum is themselves. So, وَمَخْتَلَفَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابِ, literally it would mean that not differed with each other, given the book, except after came to them knowledge because of malice between them. So I've just translated it in a literal way, but idiomatically it would mean that only those people differed with one another who, because of malice, came to, differ with one another because of malice after the truth had come to them, after the truth had been dawned upon them. So in other words, only they who were given the book, they are the ones who differed, and not because of any confusion. Ma ja'ahum min al-ilm. After the ilm had come to them, after the true knowledge had come to them, because of baghyam. So baghyam here is decline in a way that you can translate it as because of baghi, and because of baghi means because of arrogance, because of malice, bainahum, amongst themselves. Wa, and man, he, yakfuru. Yakfuru means denies bi ayatillahi, God's revelations. So he who, or they who deny, or he who denies God's revelation, fa inna allaha sariyul hisab. Therefore, fa is therefore, inna is indeed, Allah is God, sari is swift, al hisab, in taking account. So those who deny God's revelations, they should know that God is very swift, He is very fast in taking account. Fa in, therefore, if hajjuka, they dispute with you. Hajjuka, they dispute with you. Faqul, therefore you say. So if they dispute with you, you have to reply to them by saying, Aslamtu, I have submitted wajhiyal, I have submitted my face towards God, referring to the fact that I have shown obedience to God. Wamanittaban, and those who have followed me, they have also submitted. For manittaban would mean those amongst those who follow me. Manittabani actually is the word. So I have submitted my face to God, which means I am submissive to God, and those who follow me, they are also submitted to God. So this is like an ellipsis which has occurred here. Wa, and kul, say, lillazina, to those, utul kitab, given the book, who have been given the book, wa, and al ummiyin, the unlettered, aslamtum, would you show submission? Aslamtum, would you show submission? So tell these people who have been given the book and these ummiyin that would you submit? Would you accept? Fa in aslamu, fa therefore, in, if aslamu, they accept. Fa therefore, qad, indeed, ihtadaw, they will be guided. So fa in aslamu, if they accept, they will be guided. Wa in tawallaw, fa innama alaykal bala, wa, and in, if tawallaw, they turn away. Fa therefore, innama, only, alayka, on you. Allah is on, ka is you. Only on you would mean the only responsibility on you is al-balagh. Al-balagh means to disseminate, to communicate. So idiomatically it would mean that if they turn away, then your only responsibility is to communicate it to them. Wallahu basirun bil ibad, wa, and Allah God, basir, is watching over. Basirun bil is actually watching over al-ibad, his servants. So God is watching over his servants. Inna allazina yakfuruna bi ayatillahi wa yaqtuluna nabiyyin. So inna, indeed, allazina, those who yakfuruna, deny, or they refute, bi ayatillahi, God's revelations, wa yaqtuluna, and kill, an-nabiyyina, his prophets, bi ghayri haq, without justification. Wa, and yaqtuluna, they kill, allazina, those who ya'muruna bil qist, who tell them to adhere to justice. Ya'muruna means to tell them, bil qist, to justice. So they who tell them to adhere to justice, min and nas, from amongst the people. Min is from, and nas is people. Fa, therefore, bashirhum, give them glad tidings. Bi azabin alim, of a grave torment. So idiomatically, the translation would be that indeed those who have refuted or denied the revelations of God, and they are guilty of killing his prophets without any justification, and they are also guilty of killing those amongst people who ask them to follow justice. Bashir, for Bashirum bi azabin alim, give them glad tidings of a severe torment, of a grave torment. Ulaika allazina habitat a'maluhum fid dunya wal akhirah. Ulaika, they, allazina, who, habitat means to go waste. A'maluhum, their deeds. A'mal is the plural of amal. So their deeds, these are the ones whose deeds will go waste. Fi, in, ad-dunya is this world, al-akhirah is the next world. So these are the people whose amal, whose deeds will go waste. Habita, go waste, in this world and in the next. Wa, and ma lahum min nasrin, ma, not, lahum, for them, min, among, nasrin, helpers. So there will be none amongst helpers for them. This is what the Quran says. And with this we also come to an end to this section of verses. I've tried to explain their literal and idiomatic meanings to you. And now that we have some time left, please ask any questions that you would need to ask regarding the passage that is under discussion. And if there are no such questions, we can also take general ones.
Thank you for that, Dr. Saleem. Ahmed Saab, please unmute your mic and ask your question. Dr. Saleem, then there's no questions related to the passage. So
Okay.
can I open it to the general forum then?
Yes. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay. Ahmed Saab, please ask your question.
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन तकफीर के हवाले से था कि मलिका सबा की कौम को कुरान पाक के अंदर काफिर डिक्लेयर किया गया है, जबकि जब सुलेमान अलैहिस्सलाम ने उन्हें इस्लाम पेश किया तो उन्होंने पहली दफा में ही इस्लाम कबूल कर लिया था। तो अगर तकफीर बामाना
आप उस आयत को पढ़ के प्लीज present us that verse in which she's been declared a kafir. Can you please recite that verse?
सर मेरे पास रेफरेंस तो है लेकिन रिसाइट तो अभी नहीं कर पाऊंगा।
वो reference असल में that is important because you see she's not been declared a kafir there, she's just been declared a denier who is not accepting. So the word kafir is used in various degrees. It's not always intentional denial. At times it is also simple denial. So the reference is very important. And I always advise a young mind like you that please look up the tafsir of Ustaz Amin Islahi and Ustaz Javed and Ghamidi regarding a particular verse of the Quran. Because that is something which is already there for you and I would not need to explain it. So if you first go through these explanations, and they have said this clearly, that the way the Queen of Sheba, the way she has been discussed in Surah Saba, is not that she's been regarded as a kafir in the literal sense. It's the fact that she has not accepted the message sent to her by Solomon, in which sense she's been called a denier. That is why I think it's very essential that whenever you discuss a particular verse of the Quran, it must be cited in context.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So you have to first look at the verse, as I said. Please do look up that verse. It does not relate to takfir at all.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you so much. I will read
Naushad Shafkat, please ask your question.
Yes, sir. My question relates to two very small clarifications. One is the word ummi. Does it mean only unlettered, or I've read somewhere, I think Ghamidi Saab's commentary, that it also means those who never had a book sent down to them. And the other question is with regard to Qaim bil Qist. This means that God's existence is based on justice, and like we are told that he will always adhere to justice. Not that he has the power, because he has the power, he may forgive Pharaoh and put the Sahaba in hell if he wants. So is that the meaning, that his existence is based on justice?
Okay, as far as your first question is concerned, the word ummi actually refers to people. It was like a title given to the Bani Ishmael or the Ishmaelites because they were not conversant with any Sharia. They were not conversant with any divine inspiration. And in relation to them, since the people of the book, they were conversant with God's revelation, so therefore they were not called ummiyin. So it started off in this sense that these are people who are not recipients of God's guidance. Recipients, they are people who are not recipients of the books of God. So that is how the word ummi started off. But later on, it also came to be used in the meaning of the fact that someone who does not possess any formal education, someone who's not formally educated, as the Prophet himself was. So he was ummi in the sense that he belonged to the ummiyin, he belonged to the Bani Ishmael, who had a history of not having any guidance from God right from the time of Ishmael. And he was also ummi in the sense that he was unlettered, he was not formally educated. So both these connotations exist. And as far as your second question, let me recall your second question. What was the second question?
Sir, about the Qaim bil Qist.
Yeah, so word Qaim bil Qist means someone who adheres to justice. Someone who adheres to justice, and the context in which this verse occurs is the fact that the Jews and the Christians have been told that, well, they shall be taken to account. He is someone who is going to adhere to justice, and his justice is always qualified by his wisdom. So it's not something which is boundless, something which is unleashed and it will go and it will trespass beyond the boundaries of wisdom. So all his works are qualified by wisdom as well. So all these attributes of God, they work simultaneously. So justice doesn't mean in any way that people will be made to go scot-free if God wants to. No, it will only take place if the justice that he has prescribed for his own self is something which accepts that mercy. So all these attributes of God, they work in tandem, they work simultaneously, and Qaim bil-Qist only means that he will do what justice entails.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Dr. Saleem, I have a question in the chat. After death, we are told that we will not recognize our family members, but then we hear that after that, we will be united with our loved ones. Please elaborate. Thanks.
So these are two phases. The first phase is then when we will be raised up on the day of judgment. That would be a time when all of us would be thinking of our own selves. We would be thinking of our own reckoning. No one would be of benefit to other people. So this is the time when you are about to be presented for that reckoning and accountability. But once that has happened, of course, then you will people who will be sent to paradise. They will be united with their near and dear ones. So that is the next phase.
Okay, thank you for that. Dr. Saleem, there seem to be no other questions at this time. We just have a few minutes left, and I don't see any hands raised. So thank you so much. We had a wonderful session today. Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Appreciate your wisdom.
Okay.
I'll be ending the session.
Most welcome.